Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. Today I'm excited because I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this super cute starfish. You can hardly see it all in the frame, so sorry about that, but it's so cute and I absolutely love making these, and I think they're perfect for summer markets. They're also no-sew and they whip up pretty quick, so I can't wait to show you guys how to make this for week 8 of our 10 weeks of market tutorials. So we've already done 7 other weeks of the market tutorials and we made so many cute things, so make sure to check those out if you haven't already. But now let's get into the materials you're going to need to make this starfish. The first thing you're going to need is yarn. So I have this yarn that I'm going to be using. It's got like multicolor and a little bit of orange in there. This is burnout blanket, weight 6, super bulky. You can also use like chenille yarn, but a weight 6 super bulky will work the best for this pattern. And if you do change your yarn, just change the hook size accordingly. I know it might come out smaller or bigger, so this is going to be my base color for the body of the starfish. And then for my details, I'm going to be using this yarn. I got this yarn from Fabricland and it's just a orange yarn. It's also a blanket type yarn and it is a weight 6 super bulky as well. So these are the yarns I'm going to be using for this project. And then along with yarn, you're also going to be needing a hook. I'm going to be using a 6mm hook. The first time I made this starfish, I actually used a 8mm and it did work, but it came out super big. So just so you guys know, you can use an 8mm with this exact same yarn and pattern, but it does come out very large. So I decided a 6mm would be more appropriate for this tutorial. Then I have a stitch marker for keeping track of our round, a tapestry needle for just weaving in the end at the very end, and also embroidering on the little details of the starfish. Then I have a pair of scissors, and I'm also going to be using a little bit of fiberfill from polyfill for our stuffing. If you guys wanted to, you also could do safety eyes on here instead of the details, but I really like the details on this one, so I'm gonna be doing that. Now that we have our materials though, let's get into how to make the starfish. And just a couple of disclaimers before we start. One, this is my old childhood desk, so it's a little stained and marked, but it's not dirty, I promise. And also, I always like to say before I start my tutorials that this tutorial will be beginner friendly, but it's not supposed to teach you how to crochet. So if you've never crocheted anything before, you might struggle a little bit with this tutorial, and I don't recommend just going right into a tutorial and like trying to make a finished product. I recommend like watching a how to crochet tutorial and getting the stitches down. We will also be doing a few different stitches in this project, and it's a little bit more in depth than some of my other tutorials here on the channel, so I might not be going as in depth with the stitches as I usually do. But with that being said, if you are a beginner, you just made a couple of things, you should be able to make this. I am going to start with a magic ring, and you can also do a chain 2 and work into the first chain if that works better for you, but I'm going to be doing a magic ring. And I just like to kind of show you guys how to do this slowly, but I don't usually explain it just because there's so many tutorials out there on how to do it and I find it kind of confusing to explain, so I'm going to make it now. Okay, and now that I have my magic ring, we're going to start by putting 6 single crochets into the magic ring. So to do that, we go into the ring, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. And that is our first single crochet, and we repeat that 5 more times for a total of 6 single crochets in our magic ring. And now that we have our 6 single crochets, I'm going to tighten up the ring, but I'm not going to secure it yet just in case I need to expand it again. But for round 2 of our project, we're going to start by putting just 1 single crochet into that very first stitch. And I'm going to be adding my stitch marker into that stitch. And then we will be putting 1 more single crochet into that very same stitch for an increase. And then in the next stitch, we will also be putting 2 single crochets into the exact same stitch for another increase. And that is what we will be repeating all the way around for round 2 of the project, a total of 6 times for 12 single crochets in round 2. Now that I have that, I'm just going to flip my project over and secure my magic ring by just tightening it and then just tying a few knots. I just like to do this to make sure the magic ring doesn't loosen at all and just to secure the project. And then for round 3, we're going to start by putting just 1 single into that very first stitch and adding back the stitch marker. And then we are going to be doing a increase into the very next stitch. So 2 single crochets into that very same second stitch. And then in the third stitch, we are going to be doing just 1 single. And then in the fourth, 2 singles for an increase. And that is what we will be repeating a total of 6 times. So just put 1 single crochet and then an increase in every stitch all the way around for a total of 18 single crochets in round 3. Okay, I've just finished round 3, so for round 4, we are going to start by doing 1 single crochet into the first stitch. And then we will be putting just 1 single crochet into the very next stitch as well. And then in the third stitch, we will be doing a increase, so 2 single crochets into the same stitch. And then we will repeat that, so 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then an increase into the third stitch. And we will be doing this, so 2 single crochets followed by an increase all the way around 6 times for a total of 24 stitches in round 4. Okay, I just finished my 24 stitches in round 4. So now I'm going to start round 5. This is going to be our last round of increases. So we are going to start by doing 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So that's a total of 3 single crochets, and then in the fourth stitch we will be doing an increase. And then repeat that, so 3 single crochets, 1 into the next 3 stitches. And then in the fourth stitch, a increase, so 2 single crochets into that stitch. And this is what we will repeat 6 times in round 5 for a total of 30 stitches at the end of round 5. Okay, I've now finished round 5, so for round 6, we're going to be starting the starfish, legs, I guess. So to do this, we're going to start by putting 6 single crochets, so 1 in the next 6 stitches. So just do your first one and add the stitch marker, and then do 5 more for a total of 6 single crochets. And then once we have our 6 single crochets, we are going to be making a chain. And to do that, you just yarn over and pull up a loop. And we are going to be doing that for a total of 9 chains. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then to get back down to our base, we are going to be putting slip stitches. And when you make the slip stitches, especially if you have tight tension, you want to just slightly pull out the loop on your hook, or else they'll be very tight and we will be working into them in the next round. So you don't want them to be too tight. So just go into that second chain from the hook. So not this one right here, but this one. And we're going to be doing a slip stitch. So once I've pulled out the loop a little bit, I'm going to insert my hook into that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. And then instead of yarning over and pulling through for a single, we are going to be just pulling through that loop for a slip stitch. and then I'm just gonna pull that loop up a little bit to loosen it, and then work into that next chain with a slip stitch. And that is what we will be repeating down the chain, and there will be a total of 8 slip stitches. So you do chain 9, but then end up with 8 slip stitches because we don't work into that very first chain, we just work into the second one. So just make slip stitches all the way down 8 times, and don't forget to pull the loop out a little bit just to loosen it up. I now have my 8 slip stitches. So now to work back into the base, we are going to be going into the very next single crochet and just putting 1 single crochet. You want that one to be fairly tight just so that we don't have a hole right there. But now we are going to be doing 5 more single crochets in the next 5 stitches. So a total of 6 single crochets just like at the beginning. And then this is actually the exact same thing we're repeating all the way around. So if you've got that 6 single crochets, chain 9, slip stitch 8 down, and then repeat, go ahead. But I'm gonna do it a couple more times with you guys. So now that we have our 6 singles, we're going to chain 9. Then once we have our chain, we're going to just pull that loop out a little bit and work into the second chain from the hook and do a slip stitch, and then repeat that all the way down the chain for a total of 8 slip stitches in the chain. Then once we have our slip stitches, just work into that very next single crochet and put a single, and do a total of 6 singles to get to where we're gonna put our next leg. And once we have the 6 singles, we're just repeating our chain 9 and slip stitching 8 down. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish up round 6. So you're going to end up with a total of 5 little legs of the starfish. So I will meet you guys back when I have completed all 5 of the legs and I'm back to the start of. Okay, I've now just finished my 5th leg. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker and start out round 7. So this will be our last round of the starfish. So we are going to start by putting a single crochet into the very first stitch of the round, and you don't have to put the stitch marker in necessarily, but I'm just going to do it to show you guys. And then I'm going to work my way to the first leg by putting 5 more single crochets for a total of 6. And now that I have my 6 single crochets, I'm going to be working into the back of the chain from round 6, and I'm going to be making the legs. So when we make the legs, we want them to go from widest to smallest. So to do that, we're going to be doing a few different stitches, and we're going to start by doing a double crochet into the very first spot. So to do that, yarn over and then work into that first back loop, so just the very closest loop to the last stitch you made. Insert your hook and then yarn over, pull up a loop. Now we have 3 loops on our hook, so we're going to yarn over, pull through 2 of those loops, and then to finish the double crochet, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. And we're going to be making 1 more double crochet. So yarn over, go into that very next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now that we have 2 double crochets, we're going to be making 2 half double crochets. So to do that, yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. So that's a half double, and we'll be doing 1 more. So yarn over, go into that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And then next up, we're going to be doing 2 single crochets. So just put 2 single crochets into the next stitches, and then finally in the final 2 spots we are going to be doing slip stitches. So you also are going to want to just pull a little bit extra from the loop, just because we will be kind of stitching the 2 panels of the body together, so you don't want them to be too tight again. So just pull that loop out a little bit and then make 1 slip stitch, and then repeat that in the final spot. So now we have the first part of our leg completed, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and we'll be working into these slip stitches we made in round 6. The only difference is we'll be doing them in opposite order. So we're going to start by doing 2 slip stitches. So work into that very first slip stitch with a slip stitch, and then do 1 more slip stitch in the next spot, and then in the next 2 stitches we will be doing 1 single crochet. So there's my first single crochet, and there's my next one, and then the next 2 stitches will be half double crochets, and then the final 2 stitches will be double crochets. And there's my first leg. So now that we have that, we're going to be working in the very next single crochet of the body and just be putting 1 single crochet. And then we'll be doing 5 more singles in the next 5 stitches for a total of 6 single crochets in between the legs. So now that we have our 6 singles, I'm going to be doing the next leg, and they're all the exact same. So it's just 6 single crochets, and then 2 doubles, 2 half doubles, 2 singles, 2 slip stitches, and then 2 slip stitches, 2 single crochets, 2 half doubles, 2 doubles down, and then repeat. I'm going to be doing 1 more leg with you guys, and then I will just finish up the rest off camera, but you can go back and rewatch if you need a reminder of how to do it. So we're going to start by doing our first double crochet into the very first spot. And then 1 more double crochet into the next stitch. Next up is 2 half double crochets, so 1 into the next 2 spots. Then we will be doing 2 single crochets, and then finally 2 slip stitches. And now we'll be working into the actual slip stitches from round 6. So start by doing 2 slip stitches, and then 2 single crochets, 2 half doubles, and then finally 2 doubles. And now our second leg is all complete, so we'll finish it off by just starting our 6 single crochets to get to the next leg. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish up the 5 legs, and then I'll come back to you so that we can finish up this guy and let you guys know what to do next. Okay, I'm now back and I finished up all 5 legs. So to finish off this first body panel, we are going to just put a slip stitch into the very first single crochet we made. And I am now going to be tying off. If you're only using like 1 color for the whole entire thing, you don't have to tie off of your second one of these, but for the first one, you will want to tie off, and if you're using a secondary color, you will want to tie off both of them. So I'm just going to cut the yarn. And now that we have our first body panel for the starfish, we are going to make 1 more of these the exact same. So you can go ahead and skip back the tutorial to make a second one of these, and once you're done that, we're going to work on the details on one of the panels, and then we will finish this guy up. So go ahead and skip back and make one more of these, and then I will come back to work on the details with you. Okay, now that we have both of our panels all complete, we are going to be working on the details. So first we will be doing the center details. So there are 5 little details on this guy. Also, like, I've made these a few different ways, so you guys can kind of get creative and do however much or little details you want, and you can experiment with different ones, but I'm going to show you how to do it just like this. So like I said, we're going to start with these first inside details, and then we'll work on each of the legs. So I'm going to grab my secondary color. For all the details, I'm going to be doubling up the yarn. So I'm going to grab a fairly large piece of yarn, and if I have extra, which I probably will, I'm going to use it just to start out the first leg detail, but I'm just going to cut that off. And now that we have our yarn, I'm going to attach it doubled up onto the tapestry needle. So I'm going to attach it using these loose ends, not the little loop part. Doesn't really matter, but it just makes attaching it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to string both of these ends onto my needle, and I'm going to make sure they're fairly even once they're both on there. And then once we have that all ready, we're going to grab our project, and you guys can do these little inner parts wherever you want. I think for this one I did them into the 3rd and 4th rows, or like kind of through the 3rd row. So I might do that again. It's kind of personal preference though. You can go in the very first row if you want to as well. So for this one, I'm going to start by taking my needle and going underneath the project and coming out in the center of the top of the 2nd row. So it's the top of the 2nd row or the start of the 3rd row, and we should be in the direct center. If we kind of go up, it should be aligned with the center of that first leg. And then once I have that, I'm going to pull my needle almost all the way through, but not all the way through. And once I have that, I'm going to be going straight up from there, so it's a full stitch length up, and then I'm going to insert my needle and pull that all the way through so that we have a little stitch right there, and that will be our first little detail. And something I like to do just to secure it before we move on is take my needle, put it through that little loop that's left, and just make a little like slip knot technically. You don't need to pull it too tight because otherwise we won't be able to see the stitch like this. If that happens to you, just take your needle and pull it back out, just like that. But now that we have our first one, I'm going to be rotating my project and working into the stitches in the 3rd row. And I'm going to insert my needle right into the center so it's aligned with that next leg. And it's in the top of the 2nd row or the very bottom of the 3rd row of the project. So I'm now just going to pull that all the way through, and then going directly up 1 stitch length, inserting my needle and pulling that through. And it just makes that nice little detail. And since we doubled up the yarn, it's just quicker because we don't have to go and do this all over again. It just makes those nice 2 lines there. So we're just repeating that now. So I rotated the starfish, and now I'm going to line up my needle and then push it through where it will come out directly in the center of the next leg in the top of the 2nd row. And then once I have that, I'm going to insert it back into the top of the 3rd row. So 1 stitch length up from there, and then pull that through. And then rotate it again and just do that 2 more times until you have a total of 5 of these little details. So I just have 1 more here. Okay, and now the center details of mine are all complete. So I have a little bit of extra yarn here. I might need to reattach in the middle of making my leg. So if you don't have like very much left, definitely go ahead and cut a new strand of yarn and just double it up just like we did before and reattach it to your hook just like this. But I'm just gonna do the first leg with this leftover yarn just because I don't want to waste it. So we're going to start with the leg that's closest to the one we just worked this last little stitch into, and we're going to be doing 5 of these into the direct center of the chain that we made for the leg. So we are going to be starting at the very base, so just right here, and going at the very back, inserting our needle and coming out right in the center there, and then just pull it all the way out, and then go up just like 1 stitch length again. It's not going to be perfect anymore because we're not actually working through any actual like stitches, but just go a little bit up and insert your needle back in and then pull it through. And there's our first one. And the next one, it's going to need to be a little bit different because if we were to come out right here and pull that through, it would ruin this one. So to do this next one, we're going to be inserting our needle where we want the next one to end. So right about there, and then we're going to be working downwards into that last stitch we made. So right there, just inserting back into there and pulling through. And you can see it's forming a nice little line. And that's how we're going to do the remaining 3. So just insert your needle into the top where you want it to end, and then go into where we want it to start. And then do 2 more, or even you can work all the way up to the very top, like however many it takes you. I just usually do 5 on each just to make it nice and even. And then this is going to be my final one. And once we have all 5 of our little details, now I'm just going to flip this around. And to finish it up, I'm going to just insert my needle into the back of one of those stitches we made. And I'm just going to secure this yarn with a couple of knots. Make sure you're getting both of those strands in there. And just securing it. And then I'm just going to do like 1 more knot, just tying these 2 strands together just to make it nice and secure. And then once you are satisfied with that, we are going to grab another strand of yarn. I don't make these ones as big as I make the first one just because I don't want to waste it, but a good length of yarn for the next leg. And we are going to just repeat making the 5 little details going up the leg on every single one. So if you guys feel confident in doing that on your own now, you totally can. But I'm going to show you guys how to do it at least 1 more time here. So I'm just attaching a new strand of yarn to my needle. Then I'm just going to go into this next one. Starting at the base, I inserted my needle. I'm going to pull that almost all the way through, but leaving a little bit of that loop. Then I'm going to go up like 1 stitch length, pull that needle through, and then this one I am going to have to secure just like we did at the very beginning, so I'm going to do that by doing a little slip knot. And again, just pull that stitch out a little bit to make sure it's not too tight. And then the next time we do one of those little stitches, we're going to want to start at the top and work down. And repeat that 3 more times for a total of 5 little details going up the leg. There's my 5 details. So now I'm just going to secure this like I did last time. So just going into the back of one of those stitches and making a knot. And then I'm just going to tie these 2 strands together. And I'm just going to repeat that. So I'm going to repeat that all the way around until I have the details on every single leg and our center details. And then I will show you guys how to finish this guy up. Okay guys, I've now completed all of the details on every single leg and the center details. So I'm now going to grab back the other panel of my starfish and I'm going to attach these together using my secondary color. So to do that, I'm going to flip over this back panel, and once I have that facing the back so it's like wrong side up, I'm going to align it with this front panel and then just set that aside for a second so that we can get our yarn ready to attach. And I like to attach my yarn by making a slip knot, so I'm just going to quickly make a slip knot on my hook. And then once I have my slip knot, I'm going to grab back my project, and you can attach this wherever you want. I'm just going to go into a single crochet, so the very first single crochet from the base of one of the legs, but it doesn't really matter. Again, you're just going to want to make sure you're going into the same part on both the front and the back. So once I have my hook inserted into the first single on the front, I'm going to go into that very same single on the back. So this will be the single, and once I have that, I'm going to reattach my slip knot and pull that all the way through. And since I started out in that first single crochet with a slip knot, I will likely either do a slip stitch or a single crochet into that very same stitch at the end. But for now, we're going to work into the next stitch. So inserting our hook into that very first stitch on the front and the matching stitch on the back. And I'm just going to pull my yarn through all of those stitches and make a single crochet. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. Just continue putting single crochets and just make sure that it's aligned every single time and you're not missing any stitches in either the front or the back. But I just really love the effect that this gives, especially using the secondary color. You do also want to make sure that you have your front with all the details facing up as you're doing this, just because we don't want the back of the single crochets to be the front. I just prefer the very front of them to be. If you would like the back of them to be, that's fine, but personally I prefer this way. So you can see I'm now working single crochets into these stitches from round 7 of both the front and the back. So working into those double crochets and the half doubles and the singles and the slip stitches up the leg, and we'll be also working all the way back down the leg. And I'm just going to continue doing this all the way around. And if my math is correct, which it might be, it might not be, we will have a total of 110 single crochets in, I guess you could call this round 8 of our project. That would be 16 for each of the legs 5 times for a total of 80, and then our 6 single crochets in between 5 times for a total of 30, which would equal 110. But you guys can let me know if my math is correct if you care. But yeah, I'm just going to continue this all the way around. But I do want to note before I just go off and do it, you want to stuff this project as you go. So you don't want to finish the entire thing and then stuff it at the very end, because these legs will be very hard to stuff once you have it that far. So once I'm done probably 2 of the legs, I'm going to start stuffing them. And you don't really have to worry about stuffing the middle, just the legs for now, because that is the only part that's going to be difficult to stuff at the end. And then at the very end, I'll go ahead and finish stuffing the final leg and the rest of the body. But yeah, you definitely want to add some stuffing as you go, because this can get pretty tight if you don't. So just note that. And when you're stuffing, don't add a lot, like just add enough to evenly distribute it throughout the leg, but it really doesn't need much, just a little something to kind of make it look fuller. But you don't need to worry about like overstuffing it or anything, like just stuff it a little bit. So I'm just going to work around and then I'll show you kind of how I stuff it and then we'll continue. Okay, I've got a lot going on here, but I have 2 of my legs complete, so I'm just going to show you guys how I stuff them and then continue on. So I'm just adding a little bit of stuffing into the leg, and you want to try and get it all the way to the very end, and then just kind of make sure it's all even in there. And then just grabbing another little piece of stuffing and going into that next leg I just completed. And just try and get it all the way to the end. And once you're happy with it, then just continue. And just continue stuffing all the way around as you go. And then at the very end, we will just finish stuffing the body. Okay, so I've now finished every single crochet all the way around and stuffed it up except for the very last one. So I'm going to be working right into that first single on both the front and the back that we initially attached the yarn in. And I'm going to be doing one more single. And then I'm just going to be going into that first single crochet we made and making a slip stitch. And now all I need to do is just tie off this yarn. And then we have a couple of loose ends. So I'm just going to go ahead and weave those all into the center of the project. And then I just tuck in extra yarn like into the project. Unless it's super long, then I will cut it. But I also just have this loose end from the end of the back panel, so I'm just also going to weave that one in. And all the rest I did just crochet in as I was going, so I just hid those as I was working. But with all of those ends woven in, that is going to finish off our starfish. So I'm so happy we made this guy. I'm going to move the camera up a little bit so you can see the finished product. So here is our finished starfish. I think it looks so cute. And I absolutely love making this pattern. It's so fun. Thank you guys so much for watching today's tutorial. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. And subscribe to see more tutorials like this one. And like I said at the beginning, we have so many tutorials here on the channel. Especially right now because I'm doing 10 weeks of market tutorials. So those are all super quick and easy to make. A lot of them are no sew and they are perfect for prepping for markets, and a lot of them are also bestsellers. So check those out if you're interested, and stay tuned for the rest of the 10 weeks of tutorials. And let me know what color you made of the starfish, because I am so interested to hear what colors you guys made. I think there are so many cute combos you could do with this, and you could even do like a third color for the border. So I think you can get really creative with how you do these. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!